Hello and welcome to the Human Resource in Practice Training Program. I trust that your session so far has been enjoyable and you are having an understanding of the basics and the foundation required to be able to thrive in the place in the HR space, right? Okay. My name is Omola Elsie Oluwale, the founder and CEO of Lighthouse HR Company, and today we'll be looking at the HR functions. A subsequent session had mentioned that we have basics as 12. We have 12, about 12 functions. As things evolved, as the workplace evolved, a lot of other activities, programs, functions started being introduced, was introduced into the system. Some clients will have about 15, in some clients will have about 12. But basically, you will see more of 12 functions being implemented in the workplace. So today, we'll be looking at 12 to 15 functions in the workplace. So the HR function. So generally, we have 12 functions. For the training, to be able to cover as much as the functions as possible in this session, we'll look at the 12 identified HR functions in the workplace, as well as the other three that has been added to it to make it 15. So the HR functions includes human resource planning, talent acquisition, and management, which in brackets you can say hiring and staffing. So here we talk about recruitment. For the HR planning, we'll be discussing things like how do you prepare ahead of hiring? How do you plan it in such a way that you identify the gaps needed, the gaps that have been identified in the workplace, the vacancies, the position that needs to be filled, people who are exiting the company, people who need to come to replace these people. So you plan ahead of the hiring process. The third is learning and development, popularly known as L&D. All right. In some clients, you have it as training, learning, and development because for you to be able to learn and develop your skills, at least training, a form of training, is involved. Then we have performance management. All right, PM. We have the employee engagement function. We have the compensation and benefit function, the reward and recognition function, we have industrial relations, or so in some clients it's called labor relations. So we have industrial relations, labor relations. We have the health and safety function. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion. In some clients, the diversity, equity, and inclusion is not a function, okay? Or rather, it's not that it's not a function, it's not seen as a function in some clients, okay? So we have the compliance and labor law function. We have others that have been that were added. The HR administration function was included, information sharing was included. In the original 12, we have employee retention as a function. Then we have succession planning as a function. All right. So these are the 12 to 15 functions that we will be looking at throughout this period, throughout this session, okay? And then in subsequent sessions, in other sessions that will be coming up, we'll now take the core functions that aspiring HR practitioners, juniors, and entry level will focus on. Now, there are some of these functions that will not be your core at entry level or at junior level. Some of these functions will not be your core responsibilities and duties. So the HRIP course will focus on about 5 to 8 of these functions that will be your core responsibilities upon entering into the HR space in the workplace. Okay, so now let's proceed to having an understanding of what the human resource functions are, starting with the human resource planning. So we're doing an overview of all of these functions, and then we will now take them one after the other. When you are talking about HR planning, what you are trying to say here is that it is the process of foreseeing the requirement of human capital, of HR in any organization, of people in any organization. So for example, before you came on board, if you're an entry level, a junior, before you came on board that organization, there's somebody who had foreseen that they will need your services. So they had planned towards receiving you. Okay. For you as an aspiring HR practitioner, what that means is that there's an organization out there that is already planning your entry. Okay, so that is what HR planning is about. Where in a business they foresee the requirement of a certain individual with a certain skill that will be required in taking up certain responsibilities within the organization. Now, the objective of HR planning is to determine how the current staffs that we have, or the staffs that are coming, the employee that is coming in, will be the best fit to take up that job. That is why HR planning is essential. Before you are able to hire somebody, you must understand and ask yourself key question. Will this individual be able to fit into that role? Now, if this individual is not able to, what do we need? What's the age bracket, if need be, if that's an important factor? What qualifications should the person have, right? Or will the person have? What certification should the person have? How many years of experience? Will proximity be a factor? Meaning that, for example, I'm on the island. Let's use Lagos, Nigeria as an example. I live on the mainland, but the job is on the island. Will require that this individual, this employee, relocate to the island for effectiveness. So will proximity be a factor that must be considered in hiring this person? Having international knowledge, international certification, will it be a requirement? So these are key factors that we will be looking at when we dive deeper into HR planning as a function. So HR planning focuses on the basics economics, the economic concept of demand and supply. What do we need in the organization? Do we have such facility within the organization? Yes, no. We don't have it. Will we require to take it from outside? Yes, no. Okay, so these are questions that you will need to give answers to as an HR practitioner when you are planning, when you are involved or engaging the HR planning function in the workplace. Now, the next factor we're looking at is what? Talent acquisition and management. In some clients, it is recruitment. So here we'll talk about hiring and staffing. Now, for talent management or recruitment, for the sake of this program, we'll call it recruitment, right? Now, for recruitment, this will indicate the kind of skills that is needed in the organization. Remember that we have planned it. Now, what we have stated and outlined the skills, the job description of the individual in the planning phase. Now we need to attract these people. Okay, what skills are we looking at? So this indicates the skills of attracting highly skilled personnels, all right, highly skilled employees, highly skilled individuals, okay, who will take up this role. It is not just about their skill, it is about integrating them as new workers into that role. If it's a new role that is just created or an existing role that is vacant, and then improving and retaining the current workers to meet the current and future business objectives. So I mentioned it that in the planning stage, we're asking questions like, do we have these skills set? You say, oh no, we don't. Do we need to hire people from outside? Yes. So the current staffs you have, you will look at them, you will analyze their skills. Are these ones fit enough to take up these new roles? Or they have other tasks on their table that will not allow them, because their plate is full, they are not able to have additional roles. So we are taking these skills from outside if transfers cannot be made. Now, this is to be able to meet the current needs of the business as well as the future business objectives. Okay. Now, recruitment, talent acquisition, management is considered for the long term. Now, I want to introduce us to something. There's usually and talent management and recruitment are usually interchanged. Okay, when people are having a conversation, but talent management is a broader term, is usually leveraged on the long term in an organization. Recruitment is a short term process. So when you say talent acquisition and management, what you are trying to say is that you're looking at the comprehensive nature of the entire process of hiring an employee or a personnel, managing their talent, and ensuring that they meet the goals and objectives of the organization. Recruitment, on the other hand, is for the short term, meaning that it is part of the process of acquiring this talent and you know what, managing them as the case may be. Okay, now that is about talent management and recruitment. Now let's talk about training and development. Training and development is another key function in the HR in the workspace. Now, when you come to training and development or learning and development, this is the process of refining people's knowledge, people's personality, people's mindset, which is critical. Like what we are currently doing on the HR Human Resource and Practice program. What we are doing is refining your knowledge. What we are doing is refining your skills and your competencies to be able to um, adapt in an organization. So remember that one of the key functions of the HRIP program is to enable practitioners, aspiring HR generalists, operations administrative assistants, people in finance, production, manufacturing, whatever department or unit you are, and you feel that you need this knowledge, this information. That's what we are doing. We are trying to refine you so that by the time you get to this organization, you hit the ground running from the very first day. Okay, so the idea of training and development or learning and development is refining, the knowledge and the capacities, the competencies of that particular employee or candidate to be able to help them to adapt into that organization according to the changing working environment of that company. All right. Remember, in the subsequent sessions, we have talked about the fact that, in other sessions, we have talked about the fact that as an individual, no organization must stay static or else somehow they die. Even an individual, if you stay dormant, you begin to deteriorate. So also is within an organization. So bear this in mind. The complete process of identifying, selecting, recruiting, and training this particular set of individuals or that particular individual to be able to help them in their overall knowledge to grow professionally and also contribute to the growth and development of that organization. All right. So when anything that has to do with learning and development, bear it in mind that you are talking about refining the knowledge, the skills, the competencies, the capacity, improving their abilities to be able to deliver on the job. The next function we are looking at, so a quick recap, we've talked about planning, human resource planning. We've talked about talent acquisition and management, i.e. recruitment. We have talked about learning and development or training. Now we are looking at performance management. All right. Now, performance management involves managing people's performance. All right, in simple terms. So, this is one of the key elements for organizations to be able to succeed in the present and also in the future. So as we know, all companies are busy trying to adapt to, resource allocation, resources that are centered on people's views or on the views based on their value system and all that. So when we are talking about performance management, you are trying to say that we lay an emphasis on ensuring that the people's needs are met so that at the end of the day they perform optimally on their jobs, and at the end of the day also they have an holistic view of what your company is expected of them. So it's optimal profitability, optimal delivery on the job, ensuring that at the end of the day your your deliverables are in line and in direct alignment with what the organization desires of you. Performance management has tools. I won't want to say much about it because further down the training curriculum, we'll be looking at performance management comprehensively. So let's move on. All right. Now, employee engagement is another beautiful function that is quite it's like an everyday thing in the workplace. Employee engagement in the workplace is an approach, okay, that is designed to ensure that employees are committed to that business. are committed to achieving the goals and objective of that particular business. Okay, they are committed to say that I will make sure that this business thrives while I am here. An employee that is engaged is somebody who will sell that brand as a positive employer brand to another person, even without them really telling you. So staffs of Lighthouse HR Company are committed to portraying Lighthouse HR Company as an employer brand, as a brand that everybody loves to work in. All right. Everybody wants to build a career in our organization. So something like that. So if you see an employee that is not engaged, they will give you the signs. They usually will not be very much interested in what's going on. They are just waiting for payday. Okay. So at the same time, they ensure that the an engaged employee is somebody who will ensure that within that organization they are also improved upon. They have a sense of well-being, a sense a sense of value, and in turn they are also willing to offer value to that organization. So it is believed that an employee that is engaged, or an HR that wants to ensure that her colleagues and employees are engaged, is this: you must ensure that their attitude is correct, you must ensure that their behaviors are correct, and you must ensure that the outcomes by which their duties and like a result, the results of their duties and responsibilities come out as exactly as the organization desires it to be. All right. So when your colleagues, as HR practitioner, when your colleagues, your superiors, even those your subordinates, your one down or one up, is showing the right attitude, is showing the right behavior, their outcomes are exactly as the organization desires it, you will know, you can point your finger that this individual is a what is an engaged employee. So it is our responsibility to always support our our colleagues, support the other employees in ensuring that they have fun while doing their job. Now, another function is compensation and benefits, okay? Payday, right? Or rather, beyond payday. It covers the reward system, the results that the employee, or the financial rewards, or the material rewards, or the awards that the employee receives in return for their work. So when it comes to compensation, I'm talking about the entire remuneration, the entire salary package, financial package, or welfare package that is attached to that particular position or the work that has been done. So this includes payments like bonuses, salaries, profit sharing for some organization, overtime pay, and there are awards and rewards for recognition, best staff of the month, best staff of the year, then sales commissions also are also examples of compensation and benefit. So compensation and benefit can be monetary and can be in welfare packages like NHIS, HMOs, staffing loans also, where some organizations will give you company paid cars, company paid housing, stock opportunities, bond opportunities. These compensations and benefits are a vital part to ensuring that the HR is encouraged and motivated to deliver on the job. Okay, so bear this in mind. Now, rewards and recognition is another critical factor, HR function and factor that must be considered in the workplace. Rewards and recognition. So employees must be rewarded and recognized. Where organizations do not have this kind of system, you as an HR practitioner, as you grow, can make recommendations. Okay. So the reward and recognition of employees is a kind of system that is put in place to positively motivate employees. So if implemented effectively, it proves that it proves to be an efficient tool, an efficient way to encourage employees to stay, to encourage employees and to show them how they are highly appreciated. So it creates an atmosphere of a thriving business. It creates an atmosphere of wholeness, where people are not feeling like, oh, they just use and dump us. So recognizing the efforts of employees as an HR practitioner and encouraging them increase their morale to do better, to to be productive, to increase it, to be result oriented. It and it also decrease on the attrition rate. Now, an attrition rate is the rate at which people leave an organization. People resign from a place or just up and go. Okay, so where people are motivated, are encouraged, are rewarded, are recognized, it decreases such exit within an organization. So it is important that as an HR practitioner, you should be able to develop a kind of document, all right, a kind of policy that is designed to help motivate, encourage dedicated staffs, the dedicated workforce within the organization that you work with. Okay, so a quick recap: we have talked about performance management, we have talked about compensation, we have talked about employee engagement, compensation and benefit. Now we are looking at reward and recognition. So quickly, let us go to the next function, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when an organization has employees of different ethnic groups, let me use Nigeria and West Africa as an example. We have over 200 tribes or languages, so to speak. Now you can imagine having an organization that has two of each. So for example, if Lighthouse HR company has up to 200 to 500 staffs, and we have chosen to pick to employ two of each of the tribes in Nigeria, you can imagine how diversified, how the entire organization would look like. So that will require us to pick maybe English or Pidgin English, English actually, as a uniform language because everyone is likely to be interacting in their different languages. So having to when you have employees that are from different tribes, different ethnic backgrounds, with different religious beliefs, maybe a proportion of men, more men than women, in some cases more female than men, and whatever gender they have chosen to pick, naturally there will be a form of question that arises as to how do you combine these differences between all of these employees without causing so much of a friction in daily interaction. Okay, that's why I use Lighthouse HR company as an example, using English as a what? Using English as a uniform language. So where you want to avoid friction, too much friction with daily interaction in the workplace, you must consider diversity, equity, and inclusion. So managing diversity is essential for an HR practitioner. Otherwise, employee performance, even organizational performance will take a beating and it will be worse. So what do we do? So one key thing is that what should your policy say? What should your procedure say about diversity, equity, and inclusion? We must all find a center point, a uniform language where everyone can communicate in, okay, where employees will not be discriminated, where they will not be harassed, either based on gender, based on religious beliefs, or based on ethnic background. Also, even based on the kind of qualifications, educational qualification and experiences they have, okay, because it's not necessarily their fault. Okay. Now, also one key factor we must also consider is people with special needs. How do we create a balance between these people with special needs? What does the policy say? And what can you do as an HR practitioner to maintain an wholesome environment that thrives? Okay. The next function we'll be looking at is industrial relations. Some people call it labor relations. Okay. Industrial relation. In HR, is not just a study. I know the material says it's a study, but it's not just a study. It's the interpretation, okay? Is the interpretation of a function where there is harmony between what operates in the organization and what operates with the government. The government the labor law represents the government. So what is the government saying about workers? Compensation, their welfare packages, what's expected of them. They represent Also, the labor relations represents both the federal on one end and employees, private sector employees, public sector employees, employees from diaspora on another on another table. Now, the beautiful thing that we need to understand as HR practitioners is that as much as the labor, anything that has to do with labor relations is like the middleman, you also in HR as HR practitioners are connected to industrial relations. Now, what does the law says about artisans? What does the law says about warehouse workers? What does the law says about protecting the taking care of people who work in factories? What's the health and safety law? What does labor relations say about this? So now, for example, in Nigeria, when we say that you're having labor strike or you're having negotiations, the labor body is having negotiations with the government on behalf of employees of the state, of the federal government, or private parastatals are also, working in collaborations with these people to ensure that we have a safer work environment. That is what it is and more. So the HR practitioner must understand. That's why we mentioned earlier that it is important that you know what the law says. If you have an understanding of what the law says, you will be able to represent the employees within your organization and also the organization and its employers. So please bear this in mind. Now, for aspiring HR practitioners, maybe like you're a student, it's a field of study that you can consider. Okay, sometimes when you are doing industrial relations as a field of study, you will also look at things like personnel management, human resource management, workplace change, and how including adult education and training, and how you can bring this together to be able to form a particular structure that everyone in the workplace can leverage. All right, so let's go on to the next, which is health and safety. Health and safety. Now, health and safety has to do with diversifying and implementing health and safety regulations. Now, if you are if you have the opportunity to be able to contribute to the development of policies and procedures within an organization, it is important for you to consider what health and safety regulations are and what can we adopt. So there are cases where organizations, because they are workers, maybe in factories, in production units, somehow had an injury or lose their lives in the place of work, and there are no health and safety procedures or health and safety cautions to be able to speak on behalf of such employees. What will happen? Of course, people will not be happy continuing their work experience on that platform. So it is important that health and safety regulations are developed and inculcated within the workplace. Now, information sharing. Information sharing is one of the newest function, HR function in the workplace, and this entails sharing information. So one of the essential functions of HR is sharing information within employees, employer to employees, superior to subordinate, between myself and my one-up, or between myself and my downline. Okay, so I pass this information either within an internal memo or within a generalized whatever platform we choose. So that's sharing critical information either with newsletters on your social media platform or your closed group, like an update news, to help employees make proper decisions or to bring them to the awareness of certain things that are ongoing within the company. All right. There are sometimes such information could be safety procedures. You are announcing people's layoffs, maybe like somebody resigned, a new person is coming, or somebody has appointment has been terminated, or you are passing information like a mergers and acquisition process that happened. We're bringing new partners within an organization. So, but whatever information you are sharing, it must be clear. It must not be said in such a way that people can misinterpret it. It must be clear, it must be straightforward, and it must be the correct ideal information for that cadre of persons. So there are certain information your superiors, like the CEO, will not necessarily see as important. So once such information gets to them, it can look like a form of distraction. All right. They might appreciate that the information was shared with them. However, there are cases where they tell you, oh, this is distraction, this is not my call. Okay. Pass it on to so and so person. So you must be able to know that whatever information you are sharing must be straightforward, must be clear, must be precise, must be ideal for that cadre and level of person. Remember, we talked about ethical HR, where we say that there are certain information that has to be shared discreetly. So not everybody has to know what's going on. Share the right information with the right cadre, all right? And at the end of the day, you know that you have done the ethical and the right thing. Okay, so let's move on to policy formulation, very important factor. Remember, we had mentioned something like the labor law, the Nigerian constitution, and how important it is for us to have an understanding of how it works, right? Yes. So the beautiful thing here is this policy formulation, the way our labor laws and our constitution works for the government and for members of the state, meaning the citizens of the country. That is similar to how the policy and the procedures of an organization is. So what is to the labor law and the Nigerian constitution to Nigerians is what the policy of an organization is to her employees. So when you are talking about policies, we are saying what is the backbone of the organization. So the policies and the procedures of a company is the backbone of all of the functions in HR. Do you get me? As well as all of the structure by which that organization will thrive and stay. So we will not do anything anyhow. So an organization needs policies that are tried and tested. So it's not just about, oh, I adopted a policy from the US, an organization, a mining organization in the US, and I want to interpret this or adopt it for a mining organization here in Nigeria or here in my local community. The question is that, have you tried it? Has it been tested? Can it be applied here? Are the claims different? Even if the claims are different, is this something that can do us good? Okay, so these policies must be tested, must be tried, and they must be able to, we must be able to apply them to our client, to our workplace. So a reasonable and a well-defined policy framework or structure will cover multiple areas. But these areas must cover the operation, must speak to the operations and the people within that organization. So why do we have policies? Why do we need to formulate policies? In formulating policies, it is to help with standardization. Okay, it is to help with methods. How are we going to do our things? These procedures helps with implementation also. Okay, so our policies helps to control. It puts certain control measures in place. So when these policies are communicated, what happens is that there is no doubt. You cannot say you did not know. You cannot say I was not told. You cannot say that I'm not aware. So once these policies are formulated, are designed and presented, interpreted and understood by the employees, and then also as adopted, no one has any excuse not to do or execute their task as they ought to. Okay. Now, compliance and labor law. As an HR practitioner, representing your organization, you must be able to comply. We cannot overemphasize this. You must encourage compliance to the policies of the organization and to the laws of the land, the laws of the country by which the business is operating in. So your HR department must continually encourage compliance of the law, because the policies protect the business, the policies also protect the people. The labor law protects the employees and also protects the organization somehow, and also protects the government. So please continue to do not make decisions and take choices outside what the labor law or what the policies of the organization says. Okay. All right, HR administration is also a function that was it was was not in the original, but over time because of how the workplace has changed, HR administration has been included, which is a crucial function in HR, which speaks to administrative responsibilities, operations like relocation, further upskilling and training, promotion, when you want to administer sick leaves, you want to administer maternity, paternity leaves, you also want to you want to offer support to operational activities, support to administrative activities, and every other thing that has to do with documentation and paperwork. All right, that is what the HR administration is about. You're talking about payroll, you're talking about calculating number of days of work, you're talking about overtime. When I mean calculations, it might not necessarily be in terms of figure, because you will have to work in line with the finance department or the finance unit to be able to come out with the end result and the end report as regards payroll, for example. Now let's talk about personal well-being. There is no way an organization will thrive if her employees are not doing well. So when you are supporting and taking care of your employees in their as long as they are taking up their duties and responsibilities within the workplace, is a key activity that HR must be able to imbibe. So you cannot run away from it. Emotional well-being, where you are ensuring that the mental health of your colleagues, the mental health of your employees are on point. Permit me to use the word, are on point. You know that these people are doing well. They are not depressed, they are not stressed, you are not contributing to whatever challenges they are having. So regardless of the circumstances, even when circumstances and situations don't go as planned, it is important that the HR practitioner supports her employees, her colleagues in meeting their goals, their personal goals. Don't add to the problem. Show kind words, support them. One employee or the other is just looking for a kind word from you as an HR practitioner. So it's not you going to show yourself because you feel you already have the power as HR to do whatever it is you like within the organization. So please let's consider the well-being and the welfare of our colleagues and employees. Now, another key function is career planning. Now, one of this vital HR function, career planning, helps with guiding and the growth and growing of employees, their capacity, their skills, their knowledge, their career path, their career trajectory, the journey as an HR practitioner. So from the very time they want to start this journey in HR to the time when they'll be exiting, you need to plan it. Okay. So it is important that you have it in mind that you contribute in supporting employees in planning their career path. There are cases where you will be called up to give advisory guidance on the growth and development of such employees within your circle. All right. So when you are guiding employees about how their aspirations should be executed or to achieve their goals, and how you can align their aspirations with the aspirations of the organizational objective, this will help people to be engaged and to be what and to be retained. So career planning is not just about help telling us that, "Oh, this is where we want to go, this is not where we want to go." It's about ensuring that whatever aspiration I have and as an employee, you have and as an employee, is in alignment with the organization that you are working with. All right. Now we'll be looking at succession planning as a function. When you hear the word succession planning, what comes to mind? Okay, so succession planning is a process, it's an HR process where you identify critical positions within an organization that will soon be vacant, or in cases where a new department or unit is built up, is developed, somebody takes up that role temporarily, and then once it is set up, the person is moved on to another assignment, but we need to fill that position. So when the person is exiting, it is important that what you it is important that you plan ahead of the exit so that position is not vacant, and then we either have to pause operations in that unit or the project fails. So bear in mind, for every entry there is an exit, okay, whether the exit is now or will happen later in the future. But before the exit happens, plan to have a replacement for the assumed position. Plan to have a qualified replacement for such. So it's important to plan succession. All right. Then employee retention. What does this also come to? What does this speak to you about? What does this say to you when you see employee retention? So this effort, employee retention is that effort that an employer puts in their organization to ensure that the employee stays with them and grows with them. Okay. And such activity or such atmosphere or efforts could be ensuring that the environment of that organization supports the needs of the current employees that they have, and then the continual growth of such employees, in turn the continual growth of the organization. No employer likes to lose their best hands. I must tell you that. No employer. So be that best hand that the employer has, either even at that junior or entry level that you have. Be that be that what? Be that quality valuable be that quality valuable person that the employer will like to retain and will like to have. So now we talked about performance management policy formulation, we talked about compensation and rewards, we talked about all of the functions, the 12 to 15 functions of the HR. Take out time to revisit this, and I hope that you enjoyed yourself. So in the next class, we will begin to discuss these core functions in a more broader term. Thank you very much and enjoy yourself. Bye.